So great. So thank you. So I think we're going to move over now to the second half of the meeting, talking about the workforce race equality standard. Amos, I think are you going to share the screen? Brilliant. Thank you. So no, I think that's the epic one. Perfect. Thank you. So thank you. So what we're going to do now for the next half an hour is a presentation with a number of of us contributing in different ways. We're going to talk really about the workforce race equality standard and the work we've been doing in Division E and are intending to continue to do around this. But I think also included in this conversation is a broader discussion and actions and learning for all of us about diversity and equality across the board. So this really is to sort of tell you a bit about where we've got to so far with this particular work, and then move on to open some sort of our first discussions really at this sort of forum about equality and allyship and legislation. So I'm going to start off, if we go to the next slide. So this is just an overview. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about some of the terminology that gets used in this context, and so to be sure that we've got a shared understanding amongst us that we're all using language in the same way. Shuja's then going to talk a bit about the WRES work that we've been doing so far as in her role as Divisional Head of Workforce. And then Ruby Lopez, who's our cultural ambassador, is going to talk about some of her lived experience, and then from of her own and from her colleagues. And then we're going to move on to hear from Amos about the broader issues around allyship and how we can all improve our understanding and think about how we challenge ourselves to contribute and be good allies. So if we go to the next slide. So I think we might have missed one. That's it. Lovely. Thank you. So terminology. So WRES. This is a word that you may see around the Workplace Race Equality Standard, and this is a piece of legislation from within the NHS that's been mandated since 2015. The link's there on the slide, and you'll get the slides. But this work is designed, this equality standard is designed to ensure that employees from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds have equal access to career progression and career opportunities and receive fair treatment in the workplace. And the reason it's needed is because that is currently not the case. And I think, you know, we talked about this at our consultants meeting last Friday, but if you think this isn't a problem in your area, it's almost certainly because you're not asking the right questions and talking to the right people. So we have very good evidence that this is a problem across the board in all our areas. BAME is a term that's used as an umbrella term for Black, Asian and minority ethnic. And I understand there is some discussion within the BAME group at the Trust at the moment as to whether or not we want to continue with that terminology. Allyship is a word that you may or may not have heard and you may or may not have a good understanding of. There are lots of different definitions of it, but really it's about as a person who is not in an oppressed or marginalised group, using your engagement and your empowerment to emphasise social justice and inclusion and human rights. So allyship is really about those people who are not marginalised, acting in solidarity and support with those groups who are marginalised. And that can apply, of course, in a racial context, but also across a wide range of different groups who are marginalised. And then EDI is an abbreviation for equality, diversity and inclusion. EDI training is available to everybody on the DOCT website, so we don't have the greatest uptake on that, but please do engage with that. Thank you. So just to move on, this top quote comes from the NHS Leadership Academy, and it really acknowledges the value of diversity and inclusion. So it's to say really that diversity and inclusion is better for us as individuals, it's better for us as staff, but it's also better for our services and it's better for our patients. So the more diversity of thought and background and experiences that we bring to delivering our services, the better those services will be. And below that, we have a statement which has been developed within the division to say that we'll work for representation at all levels of the division that reflects the diversity of our population and community. And I think that's the bit that we're going to move on to now, is really thinking about how we're not doing that. So at the moment, there isn't diverse representation, particularly at senior levels. So this slide, again, you'll get the full breakdown, but shows really the breakdown of different racial groups across the different professional groups. But the area that we've highlighted here with the red oval really shows that particularly in nursing, once we get up to band 7, there is a huge drop-off in diversity. And so that glass ceiling that's stopping people from progressing. And so I'm going to hand over to Zsuzsa now to talk a bit about the work that we've already been doing and what we plan to continue to do to address that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name's Zsuzsa, Divisional Head of Workforce, and it's a real privilege to be able to speak on behalf of this really important topic that we're discussing today. And this is an overview, and we have got slides that we can circulate, and hopefully this will just be a catalyst for lots more conversation to take place. So Amos, if you could move to the next slide, that would be great, thank you. These are the 5 main objectives that as a division that we have agreed to get behind, that we think will really make a difference across the division. And so what we want to look at is how we can impact on these and make a difference. So next slide, please. One of the main ways that we believe that we can address the gap that Anna highlighted a few minutes ago is to recruit more people from diverse backgrounds. And we know that the research tells us that the more diverse our workforce are, then the better our outcomes are. And what this really breaks down to is having a diverse interview panel. If we can get that right, then we've got more opportunity to select and then appoint diverse members of the public into our workforce. And I just wanted to highlight here that the expectation, if you are part of a shortlisting programme, if you are on an interview panel, that this should be done during your normal work time. And any of the time that you spent, for example, attending our diverse groups, or in the work that you're doing for the division, it's anticipated that this should be during your working hours. And we have also, as a division, recently approved that if necessary, you may need to put your backfill time out to bank so that other people can then have an opportunity to backfill your clinical hours or whatever hours it is that you were planning to do, so that you can attend these important meetings. That's how important we're seeing it as a division. Next slide, please. So we frequently hear that opportunities aren't being given to all people in a fair way. So we want to ensure that we have more diverse people applying for personal development. And to do this, we need to ensure that the right people receive the training, because if we don't train people, then they're not going to be ready for the next opportunity that comes up in the professional careers. And so we want to be able to support people. Next slide, please. We have actually heard some amazing examples and positive examples of people receiving mentorship and really being encouraged in preparation for interviews about some of the cultural differences that they may face. And what we'd really like to be able to improve this for the future and to change this for the future, to make a difference, is for more people to come forward that can act as coaches and mentors and manage to spot talent. So if you believe that you can do that, then please do let us know, and please do offer your services to help others that would like to progress. Next slide, please. So my message would be, please do share these initiatives. Get involved personally and encourage those around you to become involved, and you know, become aware of the situations that are around you. Final slide, please. We don't really want to wait for any survey results. The reality is that we know what the situation is. We should know what our staff are saying and already be responding to that. The difference will come if you make a personal pledge today to make a difference, to really make sure that you get others involved and to cascade this message out. And that would be our request. Yeah. And hopefully what you'll hear now are some really powerful stories from other members of the team that hopefully can really impact on you personally. Thank you.
Thanks, Shusha. And now I'd like to hand over to Ruby. Thank you, Ruby, for joining us.
Hi, I am Ruby Lopez, and I am senior sister in NICU. Some of you probably have met me, you know, when I first speak in front of you. It was still face-to-face then, about 3 years ago. I am also one of the trained cultural ambassador in the trust. In my 3 years tenure as cultural ambassador in this trust, I have worked with a lot of people, met remotely to learn, discover and identify ways to tackle inequalities, and share within our network. I met different people, not only on the ground floor, but also in senior management and EDI leads, both in and outside of this trust, including MP. I take a huge pride in working in trust, and I am privileged to have the opportunity to contribute and make plans, to be a part of the regional network, division, and trust in ensuring that every member of staff, regardless of those 9 protected characteristics, feel valued and given equal opportunities to excel in this trust. I am astonished, I'm glad to tell you all, by how everybody from top to bottom value the principles of equality and diversity. But when I spoke to staff on the ground floor, I felt that there are still a lot of work to be done. I have interacted across many people in the trust, and some of the stories I have heard made me think that we are still far, far away from where we should be. But I am sure that we had already started this journey, especially within our division. We had numerous interactive meetings, making plans on how we can improve the experience of our staff in minority ethnic backgrounds. You have seen the data presented. Now, I would like to share a story of a staff member of this trust, which was shared with me in my role as cultural ambassador. I will read it to you. I worked for years with minimal time off. I used to hear praises about my performance all the time. Then I had a very debilitating injury, which took its toll on me, in which I had slow recovery. I felt unsupported by management during my illness. I was asked to drop a band or redeployed. I felt undervalued. Senior leaders stopped speaking with me when I sought advice from union, never spoke to me again, and passes me straight on the corridor. I felt pressured to do the things expected of me. I felt let down by the team and discriminated because of my race and color. I lost the sense of belonging after being in the trust for many, many years. All of this had taken toll on my home, life, mental, and physical health. I have no incentive to come to work or strive towards any sort of professional development, as I feel I am not meeting up what is expected of me although my appraisal doesn't reflect this. I feel confused. Now, let me show you what our other staff have said. Behind each statement, there was a hidden, compelling, and powerful story. Can you see?
I can't read that one.
It might help if you just go into speaker view, and then you'll be able to read the slides very clearly that Ruby's showing everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, let me share you my own story. This coming November, it will be my 4th year as Band 7. I'm not counting. I have been in the trust for nearly 18 years. I will let you do the math. How long I've been stuck before I got promoted. I was the first Filipino Asian Band 7 in NICU, even though there were Filipinos who were here years before me. On my first interview, I made a fool of myself. It was humiliating. I had no experience of going to an interview in a foreign country. I did not know what to expect. I was not aware that I have to speak to certain people. No one informed me way ahead of time. It was only when I was told, I am worried that you are not speaking with me about your application. And I was like, but you are going to be in the panel, aren't you? Yes, you can still speak to me. And I said, what do I ask? I have no clue. One of the Band 7's advice to me was I can look at my notes during my interview because the panel will understand that I am nervous. During the interview, I mental blocked. And remembering that advice, I looked and was frantically searching in my notebook. Of course, she didn't mean it that way. She didn't mean that I will search for the answers in my notes. I blame it on my understanding of the language. I was upset that I didn't get the job because, in my belief, I had more experience and more qualified than those who got it. I was asked to get feedback, but I was so devastated. I said, if my experience didn't count, I'm not going to apply ever again. I lied, obviously. But the second time, I'm sure whoever was on that panel will say I nailed it. Why? Because I knew then what to expect during the interview. I was very well supported. A plan was made so I can get the experience I needed to get the promotion, including interview techniques. Same support was offered to the other 2 BAME members of our staff who successfully secured Band 7 post after me. As of present, there are 4 BAME Band 7 within our team, 2 Filipinos, 2 Indians. That is a milestone from the unit's history. And there's a couple or few more in the pipeline. Given the same opportunities and support, I am sure they will soon be joining the team. But do we stop there? Last week, or more than a week ago, I applied for a Band 8A position in the trust. You will be gutted to know I'm still in for a long haul in Division E. I'm sorry, I was not even shortlisted. Though to be honest, I'm not expecting much. It makes me wonder, would it make a difference if there was a diverse panelist that was involved in shortlisting? A deep, diverse interview panelist should be involved in the whole interview process, not just a tick box for interview alone, which is happening in the trust now. I will always get a phone call or an email saying, "Oh, could you please do the interview for this higher position as a deep member?" And I was not even asked to be involved in the shortlisting. Because I was not successful, feedback was not offered. Makes me wonder again. It will be useful to know, where did I fall short in my application? Is it my application technique? Is it the way that I wrote my statement, or I'm really short of qualifications needed for the post? I think it would be useful for me to know the answers. For next time, I can improve it. Same applies to my BAME colleagues who wants to progress in their own chosen career. Now, I'm sure your brains are buzzing, asking yourselves, how can we make the lived experiences of our BAME colleagues positive or better than what you heard or what you read now? What are the actions we need to take? When do we start? How can we make them engage positively to support their career development? Can we ask ourselves, as influencers in this meeting, do we offer equal opportunities to all? What can we do more to understand each other's culture?
Thank
There's
you,
still a
Ruby.
lot of work to be done, needs to be done. I myself would like to do more, but there are challenges and barriers. If we want to make a difference, we need to start acknowledging the problems and take down those barriers, as you have seen from the slides. It only works if we work it. Someone needs to pull the plug and say, the time to start is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you very much indeed. Fantastic. And thank you for taking the time to share that with us, much of which is very personal. We know that. Thank you. Going to hand over to Amos now, who's going to talk a little bit in more detail about allyship.
Thank you. And thank you, Ruby, for sharing your experience that really leads into this in a very powerful way. I just want to highlight this slide. Anna spoke about allyship before with a definition, but I want us to be challenged to think about what is authentic allyship. So if you're going to come alongside with privilege and support those who don't have the same privileges in order to ensure that equality can be upheld, then it needs to be authentic. Now, Yvonne Coghill is the Director of Workforce Race Equality at NHS England, has produced these 7 A's of authentic allyship that I just want to talk us through briefly. First, as Ruby mentioned in her piece, you got to ask the question, do you really want to get involved? And Yvonne calls this appetite. Do you really want to be involved? Do you want to grapple with this issue of race equality? It's an emotive place. It produces some of the best and some of the worst in us. So do you want to get involved? Are you willing to ask questions and be curious? And in asking those questions, are you willing to educate yourself? Asking questions that lead you to read and to research, to discover and to know. Do you accept? Do we accept that there really is a problem and that we don't need another survey? We don't need more data. We don't need to have another workshop. Do we acknowledge, and this is really openly acknowledging in all scenarios, in all settings, that there is a problem that needs dealing with, whether that's in recruitment or in opportunities for development, for opportunities for progression, or getting on the ladder in the first place in terms of career. Do we recognize that there is a problem that we acknowledge. Apology, she speaks about this need to express sympathy for the way that racism might affect individuals in particular ways. Some have used the word empathy in relation to allyship, but in fact, significant authors, and I'll come to this on the next slide, challenge that thinking, because it's not possible for us to put ourselves in the shoes of other people, but we can understand at a sympathetic level what the impact of racism might be on people's experiences. Are we willing to challenge assumptions? Very often, the actions that are taken by organizations are based on huge assumptions about the lived experience of people, and they may completely miss the point. And then the final A is about action, because we can talk and discuss and brainstorm as much as we like, but there needs to be demonstrable action with accountability. And so these are some things to think about. And as Ruby says, the time for talking really is over. We do need action now if we're to make progress. I want to highlight on the next slide, if I can, this 7-day journey. This program, which is free to anyone, has been put together by 3 academics at Stanford Business School. They are, in their own words, 3 white women who for years have been studying the impact of racism in their particular setting, in education, in opportunities across society. And what they have come up with is this tool that helps you to evaluate your own position in relationship to racism and allyship on a 7-day journey. It's easy to do. You download it. It comes as a PDF. You can download this guide that goes with it. And on day 1, you take a pledge and think about race. On day 2, you challenge yourself about unconscious bias. On day 3, you think about conversations across race. On day 4, you are thinking about defining and applying anti-racism. Day 5, you create an action plan. Day 6, you embrace your allyship authenticity. And then day 7, you return to your pledge. And part of that pledge is that you share this with other colleagues. So this is a resource that is available and open and free and is supported by the team. And I will pause there because I think we are very close to our time.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Amos. And there's just some resources there and some of the structures that already exist within the Trust WRES network, the Division E RES and BAME network, Ruby's work as a group of cultural ambassadors, all of which you can come to draw on and look at to get more information and expand your understanding. So thank you. Thank you very much, Amos, for going through that with us all. I think that's really helpful and a very useful, it's a really useful document and I think very helpful to have you to take us through that. So thank you. Lots of comments in the notes about yes, we will be sharing all of this, Sarah. So thank you. And thanks for your comments of support in the chat to our colleagues. Has anybody got any particular comments or questions? Yes, Wilf, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is hugely important and something as the head of school, ex-head of school, found deeply disheartening and deeply depressing, the prejudice that existed. I think I would like to just flag up one area that really hit home to me as a consultant in Cambridge. When we did a survey of our trainees some years ago, and it was to address bullying in the workplace, we didn't have a question about racial prejudice. And what actually was for me, and for me working on our unit in Cambridge, was like a dagger in the heart to hear from overseas doctors, usually clinical fellows, who came to fill vital holes in our system, was how they felt treated by their colleagues at work. medical, nursing, and others. Just as they were learning to cope with the intrigue of the NHS, the intrigue of Epic, and understand the processes. And many of them commented about how they felt belittled and possibly racially abused. Actually felt racially discriminated against. So we have to be mindful that we need to support colleagues who are coming into the NHS and respect everyone. Actually, interestingly, some of those people who struggled initially have subsequently become consultants many years down the road. So are very high quality people who are being belittled and treated badly.
Thank you. Thanks, Wolf. And it's interesting the comment that you make there about it wasn't on the survey, and Amos has been doing some work about how the mechanisms for recording discrimination and events of that sort, so that if you something that sort of I hadn't even thought of, and that shows, you know, that reflects badly on me, but that on QSIS there isn't even a way to capture that there's perhaps been a racial component to something that has happened or a person has experienced. So the system that enables us to give voice to this and recognise it is designed against capturing. Am I saying that right, Amos? You know, it's designed against identifying the problem.
Yes.
Sort of systemic blindness.
Yes. So I've been involved in a number of incidents that have, some involving me and some involving others, where security staff have behaved in a racially discriminatory way. And in seeking to try and help move this forward so that it can be eliminated and a better experience for staff coming into work, I decided to escalate it, and one of the things that we agreed to do, working with Monica Jacko, who's our director for WRES, was to go through the QSIS system. Now, I'm a very competent QSIS user, I think, but it took me a very long time to fill in the report because there is no categorization for racially discriminatory events. It doesn't exist as a category. There were other issues about location. It's very hard to describe where something happens in the trust with precision. And these things have been taken on board, and we're working with the head of security at the moment, and also to see that QSIS can be changed to first acknowledge that such events can take place, and secondly, to make sure that they're adequately reported. I'm a senior consultant and I've been here a long time, and I can imagine that someone who is relatively new to the trust or doesn't have the position that I have, I would not blame anyone for abandoning the idea of reporting as soon as you open QSIS.
That's right, and so the structure of actually the whole system that enables you to do that is designed against doing it, isn't it? It's, yeah. So thank you very much for talking about that, Amos. We are running over time, and I think rather than just have the numbers dwindle, I think it would be good to wrap up here. I think I'd really like to say that this is the first of a lot of ongoing conversations that I think we need to be having, aligned with action. It can't just, there's been a lot of talk already, but I think it's important that we recognise that this is the start of a collective conversation, and absolutely not the end of it. I would like to thank everybody who's taken the time to come along and engage with this conversation, and I particularly like to thank Ruby and Amos. So thank you very much. And I think we'll close that unless anybody has any particular closing comments or questions that they'd like to. Okay, well, thank you for all the comments of support which have come up through the chat. That's great. Thank you. And we will continue to do our work in the meantime, and then pick this conversation up and develop it further as we go forward as a division. So thank you all very much indeed. And I wish you a calm afternoon if you're at work, and some rest over the weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.